Okay, Kufchas Amad Beis. Hamigaresh es ha'isha vehechzira. So a person divorced his wife, and then he realized Chatati aviti upashati, I made a mistake. Vehechzira, he takes her back. Muteres liyavam. So he's mutter, and then he dies. So muteres liyavam. So she is mutter to the yavam. What's the problem here? Look at Rashi. V'lo amrina nisuin harishonin mapilim yavam alifnei yavam v'arei nesar alav osan nisuin b'shat shagirsha achiv v'havi legrusha achiv. What's the problem? The problem over here is that he divorces her, then he takes her back, and then he dies. Well, now his brother needs to do yibum with this wife. The problem is that she is also Gerusha Sachiv. She is also the Gerusha of your brother. You're not allowed to marry the Gerusha of your brother. So what do you do here? So the Chachamim, the Tanakhama says, you still do Yibam. Why? Because as we'll see, Lamaisa, the fact that you were Megarish her doesn't matter because you remarried her. Says Rabbi Elazar Oser. Rabbi Elazar is Oser, and the Gemara is going to explain why Rabbi Elazar would say you cannot go ahead and do Yibum with this woman. So to a case, says Rashi, where there was a Ketana who was married off by her brother or her mother after the father passed away. So then this man was Megarish this Ketana, Vehachzira, and then he brought her back. And then she grew up, muteres liyavim. Then he dies, so she again is going to be mutter to the yavim, even though he was megarish. Rabbi Elazar oser. Rabbi Elazar says it's going to be aser. We'll have to see again why, but according to Tanakama, it's mutter because you were married to her after you divorced her, and it's not considered to be grusha sachiv once you remarry her. Now, there's a case where even the Tanakama agree it's aser. What's that case? Kitana sheisia via v'nisgarsha. The father marries her off. What's that? What kind of marriage is that? Deraisa marriage, V'nisgarsha, then he divorces her. Ki yisoma b'chaye'ah. Then Rashi explains why is she like yisoma? Because once a father accepts gerushin for his daughter that he had married off, so he cannot get another shot. You get one shot to find the right girl to find the right guy for your daughter. Once you blow it and they get divorced, so you can no longer marry her off again. So she's like a yisoma. Her father's alive, but it's as if he has no power over her. Vehechzira. Now this person who divorced this Ketana while she was a Ketana, Vehechzira, says Rashi, Vehechzira, Big Kadnusa. It's interesting, Rashi has a different gear, so our Gemara doesn't say Big Kadnusa. Rashi over there says Vehechzira, Big Kadnusa, right to the right of the Gemara. And he takes her back while she's a Ketana, and then he dies. Divrei Akol, Asura Liyavam. So even the Tanakama agrees she's going to be Asura Liyavam. Why? Because again, he was married to her on a Doraisa level. Then he goes ahead and he's Megarish on a Doraisa level. So when he dies, his brother is she's considered to be a grushas achiv on a deraisa level. When he remarried her as a ketana, it was only a derabanan marriage. And therefore, even the Tanakama are going to agree that the second marriage is not going to replace the gerushin, and the gerushin which happened on a deraisa biblical level is going to be the gerushin, and therefore it's going to be gerushas achiv. And when he dies, his brother will not be able to do yibum, because at the end of the day, she is going to be the grusha of this guy's brother, the one who passed away.
What happens if she comes 12?
What?
What happens when she comes 12?
So we're going to see. We're going to see what happens. Well, no. So in this case, we're saying that she's usher right now, so therefore that's it. You're not. If she's usher, then you can't do yibum, you can't do chalitza. That's it. We'll see what happens in the case. We'll have other cases later in the Gemara. Amar Eifa. Eifa says, my time at Rabbi Elazar. What's the reason of Rabbi Elazar, who is Oser? What's the reason of Rabbi Elazar who says that it's Oser? Again, they got remarried. What's the problem? So he holds no. Once she was Oser for even 1 minute, i.e. at the time that they were Megarish, so now the guy's brother, this guy who dies, his brother is Oser to this girl right now, because at the end of the day, it is his brother's divorcee. So now when they get remarried, she still forever has the title of brother's divorcee on her, and therefore she can never do yibum with him. So the Rabbanan say to Eifa, so Rabbanan say to Eifa, if this is so then you shouldn't need chalitza either. Right? Because if she's pater mi yibum, so then she should be pater from chalitza as well. Whenever you can't do yibum, you can't do chalitza. But the problem is, if you tell me ena chanami, that she doesn't have to do chalitza. Vatani mishum Rabbi Elazar amru choletzes. Rabbi Elazar says that you need to do chalitza in this case. So how is it possible to say however amdalav sha'achas b'isur that the original isser of gersha achiv, the original isser of grushas achiv still stands? L'maisa, if that still stands, so then she shouldn't have to do chalitza either. We see that Rabbi Elazar says you do have to do chalitza. Ela amar Ephra, Rabbi Elazar lo yadana my taima. I don't understand Rabbi Elazar. I have no idea why Rabbi Elazar says oser. L'maisa, they got remarried, it should be okay, and they should be able to do yibam. Amar Aryai, so Aryai says, I'll tell you, Efa, I'll tell you what the reason is. Hainu time of Rabbi Elazar, misafka le'imisa mapelas inisun harishona mapilin. Imisa mapelas haram yakame liibam. Inisun harishona mapilin amdalav sha'achas bisa. What's Rabbi Elazar's reason that he says oser? Because he's besafek. He's not sure if we go based on the misa. And at the time of the Misa, they were married, even though he divorced her before, they were married now, and Lamaisa, she does Yibam just like any other person. Or do we not go based on the Misa, and we go based on the Nisuin Rishon, and we go based on the fact that Lamaisa, they were already Megarish, and therefore it's considered to be Grushas Achiv. So which one do? We don't know, so we have no choice but to say Aser. But since it's a Safek, so it's Aser to do Yibam, but you still need to do Chalitza. And that's where he comes out that it would be oser aval choletzes. Says Rava Mar le'olam shita Rabbi Elazar demisa mapelas. No, Rabbi Elazar agrees that the misa is mapelas, and that at the time that he dies, that's what we go by, and therefore at the time that he died, they were fully married, even though they had been megarish before. So then, what's the problem? The problem is, so then why is it oser? According to Rabbi Elazar, it should be perfectly mutter to do yibam. Ha'amda Rabbi Elazar demisa mapelas u'mihu akol bekiyin begerishin ve'ein akol bekiyin bechazara. The difference is everybody knows about Gerushin and not everybody knows about Chazara. Gerushin's a good hak. At the Shabbos table, when somebody gets divorced, everybody at the Shabbos table is going to talk about it. But when somebody takes back a wife, not everybody's going to talk about it at the Shabbos table. Adarabba, Chazara came in Diyasa, tu say Yislekala. What are you talking about? That's really good hak at the Shabbos table. It's one thing, okay, people get divorced all the time, we don't talk about it. But if a guy gets divorced, and then he goes ahead and he takes her back, that's got a kola. Everybody's going to know about that one. Okay, what's the point here? Milo askinan de ahadra ba'orsa v'shachiv ba'asra b'safra. No, he says as follows. What's the case? The case is that there was a man that was married to a woman and he divorced her, and then they get remarried, and then he dies. So he said Pashup Pshat is that they should do Yibam because Lamaisa they got remarried. He goes based on the time that they got remarried, and that's it. Rabbi Elazar Oser, he says you can't do Yibam, not because you should do Yibam, you should do Yibam, but we have to make a Gzeira for this special case. What's the special case? It's possible that a man's going to take a wife, he's going to divorce her. He's going to take her back at night, when it's very quiet. Nobody's going to really know what's going on. He's going to pass away when he realizes his mistake that he took her back that night. He's going to pass away, and he's not going to wake up in the morning. He's going to say, what was I doing? And that's it. I'd rather not wake up. And Lamaisi doesn't wake up. So he doesn't wake up in the morning. What's going to happen? So nobody's going to know that he remarried her. What's going to happen now if his brother goes ahead and does Yibam? What are they going to think? It's okay to do Yibam with Grushas Achiv, because all that people know is that this man divorced this woman. They don't know that he actually took her back. Everybody agrees that if everybody knew that he took her back and then he dies, so then you do Yibam because it's not Grushas Achiv anymore because you got remarried. But since we're worried that it's possible to draw up a case where the guy's going to take her back without anybody knowing, and if you go ahead and do Yibam, so then everybody's going to think that you in fact do Yibam with Grushas Achiv because he got married at night before anybody realized, and when he passes away, people are not going to find out. They're going to be too busy with the death. They're not going to think, to ask, maybe they got remarried. Everybody's going to think that there was Grushas Achiv, and you do Yibam with Grushas Achiv. So Rabbi Elazar says, even though in this case in general, Hamagaresh es ishto, vehechzira, and then you die, you should do Yibam. We're going to make a Gzeira because of that case where you might die in the night, and people won't know that you took her back. We're going to make a Gzeira and say you don't do Yibam in any cases of Hechzira, and you always do Chalitza in cases of Hechzira.
So you're being Batal HaSei for a possibility.
That's what it sounds like.
Of a toast?
That's what it sounds like. Again, Sheva al Taisa, the rabbis have the right to do that. I'm not telling you to be right. The rabbis have a right to tell you don't take a shofar, don't take a lulav on Shabbos, because the Gemara says that we saw in Yevamos, Sheva al Taisa Shani. They can't tell you to go ahead and actively be over an Isser, but when you're going to sit in, they just say don't do Yibam. But over here you're doing Chalitza. The question is, I don't think it's an Isser. You're just doing Chalitza, and that's it. But again, you see that according to Aryai, there was a possibility And that's why he was osir, because he wasn't sure. According to Rava, even further, if for sure he said that you should do yibum, but they had to make a gzeira in this case. And we'll see in the Gemara. The Gemara is going to ask what happens with the tzara. What happens if she has a tzara? What do you do with her? You can't say to do chalitza with her necessarily, or you can't do yibum because then it's a gzeira. We'll see in a second. Ravashi Amar. Ravashi says, Hainu tamad Rabbi Elazar de gazer hani mishum bisoma b'chayav v'achzira. He says it's also a gzeira, but not for that crazy case. It's not considered a crazy case. What's the Gezerah? The Gezerah is because of the last case in the Mishnah. What does that mean? We said everybody agrees in the last case of the Mishnah where the father marries off the daughter and then accepts the gerushin that he can no longer go ahead and remarry her off. And now if the husband who divorced this ketana remarries her while she's a ketana and then he dies, so everybody says that she's asr liyavam. Why? Because the second marriage was only a dirabanan marriage because she was a ketana, and the gerushin was a deoraisa gerushin because it was a deoraisa marriage, and therefore the dirabanan, the Dirabanan Yibum, when he dies, can't trump the Deoraisa Gerushin, and you have Grushas Achiv on a Deoraisa level, and therefore you can't do Yibum. So since everybody agrees in that case, so we're going to make Xera across the board by all cases of Hechzira that you don't do Yibum. That's what the Gemara says. This makes sense. It's Pashut, the Sefer in the Mishnah. What do you have to tell me in the Mishnah? He remarried her when she was a ketana. It was a dirabanan marriage. It's pashut that you can't do yibum over there because it's grushas achiv on a deraisa level. Elalav hakamash melan time derbalazer degazer hanach mishum hay shmamina. Rather, it must be the only reason that tells us a sefer in the Mishnah is to teach us the reason of Rabbi Elazar, who's osir in the first two cases in the Mishnah. And again, just to read quickly, Tani Kavasei de Ravashi, Modim Chacham Rabbi Elazar B'Ktana Shesi Aviyav and Isgarsha, the last case in the Mishnah, Aryai Ki Yisoma B'Chayav, Ve'achzira She'asura Liyavam Nesha Gerusha Girushin Gemurin Ve'in Charazarasa Chazara Gemura. So the Gemara says again, just to clarify the last case in the Mishnah, it's obviously talking about a case where he divorced her while she was a ketana, and he remarried her while she was a ketana, like we've been explaining. But if he takes her back when she's a gedola, so then what did we say? She takes it back when she's a gedola, so then it's a real marriage. Now you have the real new marriage basically trumping Gersha Achiv, and again, you'll have the same machlokes in the case of the two cases in the beginning. You'll have the same machlokes in the last case as you'll have in the first two cases. According to Tanakama, you do yibum because the second marriage when she was a gedola basically forgets about the fact that she was grushas achiv. Rabbi Elazar will tell you, depending on who you hold, like Rava will tell you, well, Rabbi Elazar will be oser in all the cases. The reason will either be like Abaye, either like Rava or like Ravashi. Again, inami hechzirak shitana v'gadla etzla v'meis, or she grows up. Again, whether he takes her back when she gets bigger or she just grows up while they're married, and then basically they get married while she's already living with him. Everything that we said outside is said clear in that Mishnah there. So Rava asked Rav Nachman the following case. Sarasa Mahu. In the cases where Rabbi Elazar was Oser, again, the first two cases in the Mishnah, where Rabbi Elazar was Oser. So we said, why was he Oser? So we said, like Ravashi, we just proved like Ravashi. And again, we learned and we said, Shema Mina like Ravashi. What's the reason that he was Oser in those cases? Lamaisa, she got remarried to him. Now when he dies, why should she not be able to do Yibum with his brother? It's Grushas Achiv, it's not Grushas Achiv, they got remarried. Ravashi said, no, we had to make a Gzeira because of the last case in the Mishnah where the father can not marry her off again. So what's Sarasa? What about if he wants to now do Yibum with the Tzara? Einachanami, he can't do Yibum with this girl because at the end of the day, she is Grushas Achiv, which, again, we made a Gzeira for the last case of the Mishnah. What happens if you want to do Yibum with the Tzara? So don't tell me that you can't do Yibum with the Tzara. If you tell me that, then it's Gzeira l'Gzeira. The whole reason that he couldn't marry this woman was Gzeira because of the last case in the Mishnah. If you tell me that he can't even marry the Tzara, that's taking a Gzeira and basically extending it to another Gzeira. Because this Tzara was not Grushas Achiv, it was only this woman. So tell me that because of the Gzeira in the last part of the Mishnah, so you can't marry this woman, you need to do Chaletzes. But why can't I marry the Tzara if I want to do Yibum with the Tzara? So the Gemara is going to say, am I going to make a Gzeira l'Gzeira v'hatanya b'shum Rabbi Elazar amru hivit tzarasa cholatzes? And yet Rabbi Elazar seems to say that you have to do chalitza to, or tzarasa you do chalitza to. Hivit tzarasa kazagada. Well, originally the Havamina is you have to do chalitza to both. We never do chalitza to two. Elalav he tzarasa cholatzes. So the Gemara says lav teirutza commentaris. You're not giving me the answer I want to hear. I wanted you to tell me about Tzaras, and I wanted you to tell me why he can't marry the Tzara. Taratzach, you say this, he cholatzes, you're right. If he chooses to do it with this girl, he needs to do chalitza. Again, he can't do Yibum because of the Gzeira al, it's the last case in the Mishnah. Tzarasa, if he wants to do it to Tzarasa, oh cholatzes, he can do chalitza, but you're right. Oh misya bemes, if he wants to do it with the Tzarasa, he can do Yibum with the Tzarasa, because again, the only reason he couldn't do Yibum with this woman was because of the Gzeira. If you don't let me do Yibum with the Tzarasa, it's Gzeira l'Gzeira, and Eina Chanami, in this case, where the guy marries a woman, he divorces her, and then he remarries her, and he dies. If he's married to another woman also, so Eina Chanami, he can't do, the brother now can't do Yibum with this girl because of the Gzeira based on the last part of the Mishnah. But if there's a Tzara, then his brother can, in fact, do Yibum with the Tzara.
What would be the Havamina?
Why is it a Gezerah and a Gezerah? Just it's a low plug to anyone he was married to.
So that's what we're saying. We're saying, the Gemara seems to be saying,
I don't understand. What's the Havamina to make a Gzera on the Tzarasa?
I'm saying it's not a Gezerah and a Gezerah.
Well, you guys are arguing with each other.
Gzera,
He's counting, he's not a Gzera. You're saying, what's the Havamina? So after this year, you take it outside. This is the, no, I'm saying you're arguing opposite points.
She's divorced. She's out of the picture. I mean, let's say she really is divorced, right? He remarried her, but let's say she is really divorced.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he go to Tzarasa?
You're trying to make across the board, but Lamaisa, yeah, maybe sometimes across the board. Over here, the Gemara is saying the fact that the first woman is only, and you can even say that he married her afterwards. It's possible. Again, we're drawing up the case where maybe he took her back, then he married another woman. She had nothing to do with this whole Gerushin, not Gerushin, whatever, and now he dies. So what is after? This is not her problem. Well, it is her problem because he died, but it's not her problem. It's her problem in the sense that you're right. So the Gemara says, "Enachanami, you can do Yibum with this girl." Fine. You ain't seen nothing yet. Mishnah. Shnei achin nesuin. We're almost done with Yevamos, right? By the time I fill in again, hopefully we'll be done. Shnei achin. We love Yevamos. Shnei achin nesuin l'shtei achayos ketanos. So what's the case over here? Where are we? No, I'm just looking over here. Fine. I like to have my charts in front of me. Shnei achin nesuin l'shtei achayos ketanos. So Reuven and Shimon are brothers, and they're married to Rachel and Leah, who are sisters, but they're not only sisters, they're ketanos. Umeis bala shalachas mehen. Let's just say Reuven dies. So the marriages of both of them are only midirabanan, because they're both ketanos. And therefore, when Reuven dies, what happens? Halazu teitze mishum achos isha. So think this out for a second. Reuven and Shimon are brothers, married to Rachel and Leah, who are sisters. The marriages are only midirabanan, and therefore what? The mitzvah yibum, when Reuven dies, the mitzvah that Rachel has with Shimon of yibum is what? Only on a dirabanan level. Because again, Reuven was only married to Rachel on a dirabanan level, and therefore the mitzvah that Shimon has to be with Rachel is only on a dirabanan level, and therefore the dirabanan Isser of Achos Isha, the Rabbanan Isser of Achos Isha, since it's only Achos Isha through a Dirabanan marriage, all the Dirabanans basically push each other off, and therefore you're pater from Yibum and Chalitza. B'chein Shtei Charashos, and it's in
Chalitza if she's married to another one.
What?
She's already married to the brother.
Brother died.
They're both married.
Sarah.
No, Reuven is married to Rachel, Shimon is married to Leah,
Right.
and now Reuven dies.
So Leah is married.
Leah's married, but Rachel's not married. Now Rachel needs to do. She lost her husband. V'chein shtei chareshos, and also two chareshos. That means that if Rachel and Leah were deaf mutes, so then again the marriages to them, even if they were gedolim, the marriages to them are only dirabanan, and therefore it would be the same case. Gedolo ketana. No, not simple enough. Gedolo ketana. You have a gadol and a ketana. So Leah now is married to Shimon. If you had the chart, I'm sorry, it would be easier. Shimon is married to Leah gedola. So that means her marriage to Shimon is what? Deoraisa. Reuven is married to Rachel, who's a ketana, and therefore their marriage is only a dirabanan. Meis bala shel ketana. If Reuven dies, so now what happens? Teitze ketana mishum achos isha. Now, the Ketana Rachel doesn't have to do anything with Shimon. Why? Because she is the sister of Leah. Again, Shimon and Leah are married on a D'oraisa level. The fact that Reuven and Rachel are only married on a D'Rabbanan level doesn't matter, because even if Rachel wasn't married to Reuven, Rachel would still be a Chos Isha of Shimon on a D'oraisa level, and therefore you basically take Reuven out of the picture, and it's Keilu Shimon, again, it's Keilu Shimon has to do Yibum now with Rachel. He can't do Yibum with Rachel because it's his wife's sister, his real wife's on the D'oraisa level sister, on a D'oraisa level, and therefore the Chalitza and the Yibum do not take place. You think you have it off easy? No. Meiz Bala Shel Gedola. This is the real problem now. What happens if Shimon dies? Now Shimon is married to Leah on a Deraisa level. Reuven is married to Rachel on a Derabana level. Rachel and Leah are sisters, obviously on a Deraisa level. So let's see what happens over here. So now Meis Balash al Gedola. Now Shimon dies. Now you're going to have a machlokas. Why are you going to have a machlokas over here? Because let's see. Now Leah, Shimon dies. So Leah falls to Reuven for Yibum, right? He falls to Reuven because of Yibum Deraisa. Reuven is Shimon's brother. And now now Shimon dies without children. So now Reuven needs to do Yibum Deraisa with Leah, right? The problem is Reuven can't do Yibum with Leah. Why not? Because he's married to the sister. Okay, so do Chalitza. The problem is you're not pater from Chalitza. So you say you can't do Yibum, you can't do Chalitza, you're pater, everything's okay. The problem is that since he's only married to Rachel on a Dirabanan level, he still needs to do Chalitza with Leah. Because if he was married to Rachel on a Deoraisa level, so now you're pater from Chalitza and from Yibum with Leah. But since you're only married to Rachel on a Dirabanan level, therefore you can't do Yibum with Leah, but that's not strong enough to get rid of the Deoraisa Zika, the fact that Leah was married on a Deoraisa level to Shimon. That's not enough to get rid of that Zika, and therefore Reuven needs to do Chalitza with Leah. What's the problem if Reuven does Chalitza with Leah? Once he does Chalitza with Leah, so Achos Chalutzaso, the sister of the person you do Chalitza with,
His wife.
is Aser to you. So we're stuck a little bit. I just want to make it clear. You have Reuven and Shimon over here, Rachel and Leah over here. Rachel is married to Reuven on the Dirabanan level. Rachel is married to Reuven on the Dirabanan level. Shimon is married to Leah on a Deraisa level. Shimon dies. So now on a Deraisa level, Reuven needs to do Yibum with Leah, right? They need to do it on a Deraisa level. So usually you would say that if they were married in general on the Deraisa level, so you would say that she's basically pater, Yibum Chalitza go out the door. But because they're only married on a Dirabanan level, so even though they can't do Yibum now, they still has a chiyuv to do Chalitza. And therefore in this case, Reuven needs to do Chalitza with Leah, or Leah needs to do Chalitza to Reuven. The problem is that if Leah does Chalitza to Reuven, now the sister of the person that you did Chalitza with is Aser to you. Unfortunately, in this case, the sister of the person who did Chalitza to you is your wife. And therefore, we're going to see an opinion of the Gemara that you need to divorce your wife in this case because of the situation that happened. Crazy. So let's see for a second. One second.
And if you're a Kohen, you can never marry her back.
Basically.
Yeah.
And again, the reason that you're not pater from Chalitza here is because it's only an erva dirabanan. And the erva dirabanan cannot pater the mitzvah deraisa of Yevamos. So what do you do in this case? So Rabbi Eliezer Omer, melamdin es haktana shetemayin bo. What do you teach? You teach Rachel to do miyun with Reuven. So Rachel has to go ahead and annul her marriage to Reuven. Once Rachel annuls her marriage to Reuven, so now Reuven's not married to Rachel, and now Reuven and Leah can do Yibum or Chalitza. It's not a problem. Again, you're still managing that you have to go ahead and divorce her. Reuven cannot be married to her anymore. But, okay, she's only a Ketana. What's the big deal? So, Melamdin es Aktana Shetamayim. So, Rabbi Eliezer says you teach Rachel to do Miyun. Again, she's a Ketana. She can still do Miyun. She can retroactively get rid of the marriage. She does Miyun with Reuven. And Shalom HaYisrael, Reuven can now do Chalitza or Yibum with Leah.
But he can never marry Rachel.
He cannot marry Rachel. Correct. Unfortunately not. Rabbi Gamliel Omer, im miya namina. So Rabbi Gamliel gives us a solution. Im miya namina, if she wants, she could do miyan. Ve'im lav, and if not, tamtin ad shetagdil. Ve'teitze halazu mishum achosisha. You want to stay married to her, so then what you need to do is, you just could either do miyan, but if you don't want her to get divorced, he's willing to work with us, Rabbi Gamliel. What does he say? Don't do anything now. Don't do Yibum, don't do Chalitza, keep it in our back pocket. Let Rachel grow up. And we'll see in the Gemara, does it just matter for growing up, or do they have to actually have Bia again once she becomes a Gedola, in order to basically become fully married? But let's just say for now, she needs to grow up. Once she grows up, now Reuven and Rachel are married on a Deoraisa level. Once Reuven and Rachel are married on a Deoraisa level, now you don't do Yibum, you don't do Chalitza, Shalom HaYisrael, and everything is fine. Reuven stays married to Rachel, and Leah can go ahead and marry anybody that she wants.
Obligation already existed.
Doesn't matter.
Before you got
The
married.
Gemara is saying it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The Gemara is saying since they were already married, we basically wait. We could put everything on the side. It's a chiddush. Rabbi Gamliel is a chiddush. Put everything on the side, and therefore you wait until Rachel grows up. Once she grows up, it's as if she was a gadol the whole time, and therefore Leah will be pater from chalitza and yibum with Ruvain. Finally, Rabbi Yoshua says, which is the one we don't want to hear. Rabbi Yoshua Omer, Ilo alishto, ilo aleshes achiv. Oy vey. Nothing we can do. He's got to divorce his wife. He's got to do chalitza with Leah. Motzias hishto beget ve'eshes achiv bechalitza. Umi shari. So the Gemara says, do we really allow, according to Rabbi Eliezer, who says that we teach her to do miyun, do we really allow, or even according to Rabbi Gamliel, who says that we allow her to do miyun, do we really allow her to do miyun? What does that mean? We're going to have a little bit of Agada, Baruch Hashem. So we say that La'olam, you should do three things, you should get close to three things, and you should stay away from three things. Yidbak b'shlosha devarim, three things you should go near to is chalitza, hava, shalom, v'afar sadarim. It's good to do chalitza. It's obviously not good for the person to die, but if you're going to do something, it's better to do chalitza than yibum, we'll see. Uva'avas shalom, it's good to bring peace. Uva'afar sadarim, it's good to annul vows. Not just the father or the husband, it's good for anybody to annul vows that they took. V'yisrachim, mishosha devarim, the three things you should stay away from are min ha'miyun, umin ha'pikdonos, don't take safekeepings from people, umin ha'arvonos, and don't be a guarantor. So what do we see here? We see it's not good to do miyun. So how can you tell me that she should go ahead and she should do miyun, or you're going to allow her to do miyun? Says the Gemara, miyun de mitzvah shani. No. In general, it's not good to do miyun or to encourage a girl to do miyun. But if it's going to be in a case of a mitzvah here, where if she doesn't do miyun, we're going to have this whole problem, and she's going to have to get divorced and everything. So miyun de mitzvah, in this case, where it's yibum, where chalitza, so then we're okay with miyun. Let's see a little bit of agata. We've deserved it. Gufa. Tani bar kafra. La'olam yid bagada b'shosha dvarim b'chalitza. One of the three things you should stick to is chalitza. What does this mean? Ka'abashal. Why is it better to do chalitza than yibum? Detanya abashal omer. Hakones esivam to l'shem noai. Because we're worried that people are going to marry the Yevama because of her beauty. L'shem yishus. Because they don't want to be single anymore. L'shem davar achar. For any other reason. It's going to bring him fame or money. Ki'ilu pogea be'erva v'karov be'enai liyos avlad mamzer. Wow. That's like you're being pogea be'erva, and in my opinion, it's close to them being a mamzer, the kids. And therefore, he says it's better to do chalitza because we can never know that people have the proper intention when taking the Yevama. Behava shalom, where do we... What?
What's the difference?
What do you mean?
He's supposed to go to the mitzvah.
Right, but the point is that they're saying that the point of the mitzvah, according to him, the point of the mitzvah is to be making the shem achiv. That's what the Torah says. And if he's doing it for the wrong, okay. If she happens to be beautiful, it's not saying you can't marry her. But we're worried that when she's beautiful, we're worried that in general that people are going to have other things in mind, and therefore it's better to do chalitza in general. We're not all as holy as you. We're not all on this level that we can do everything lishma. Behava shalom dechsiv. Unfortunately, the tape doesn't know what I'm talking about. Behava shalom dechsiv. Behava shalom dechsiv. How do we know that it's good to be yidbak to shalom? Well, because it's self-explanatory. But no, we have a pasuk. Ba'kei shalom v'ratfeyu. You should chase after shalom. And the Gemara is going to add v'amar Ravi Avahu asya redifa. And the Gemara is just going to add. Again, we saw from the pasuk it's good to chase after peace. The Gemara is going to add that there's also a special reward for chasing after peace. Ksiv hacha ba'kei shalom v'ratfeyu. Uksiv hasam rodef staka v'chesed. If you chase after staka v'chesed, yimsa chayim staka v'chavod. You're going to find chayim. You're going to find staka. You're going to find chavod. And they make a gzera shava from rodef. That if you chase after peace, then you're also going to, as Rashi says, ochel perasem ba'alam hazeh v'akeren kayem eslo li'olam haba. Always good to be peace. But afaras nedarim k'Rabbi Natsan. Why is it good to do afaras nedarim? What's wrong with nedarim? The Tanya Rabbi Natsan Omer hanoder kilu bana bama. Wow. If somebody takes a neder, it's like building a bama, and there's an isser of building bamos. What's the problem? And if you go ahead and do the neder, you go through with the neder, then it's as if you brought a korban on a bama. Not such a good thing. What's the problem? So Rashi says, if you actually go through with the neder, what's the problem? Why? So it's good to do Ataras Nadarim in general, Hafaras Nadarim, because we don't want people taking Nadarim. You might say, it's a good thing, yeah, but Lamaisa, we're worried that if we let you do Nadarim, then you're going to go ahead and take Nadarim that you're not going to fulfill. You need to stay away from three Devarim. Min ha-mi'unin. You need to stay away from mi'un. Why? Dil magadlo mischaret ba. Because maybe she's going to grow up, and when she grows up, she's going to say, what was I doing? I never knew he was going to be such a successful lawyer, and if I would have known that he would have so much money, I would have never done this. So we don't want her to go ahead and have mischaret, to be mecharata, and therefore you should never do mi'un. Min ha-pikdonos. Why should you not take pikdonos? Why should you not take safeguardings from people? Well, unfortunately, Bebar Mas is talking about your friends, people in your city. The Beise ki Beise Dami, because when they come for lunch on Shabbos, what are they going to do? They're going to go and they're going to see the thing that they left by you for safekeeping. They're going to take it back, and then they're going to come to you the next day and bring you to court and say, you never gave me back my thing for safekeeping. Okay, be careful who you choose as friends. Minha Pigdonos Ba Bebar Masa de Beise ki Beise Dami. Minha Eravon. When it says that you shouldn't be a guarantor, Be'arve Shiltzion. Shiltzion is the name of a place. You shouldn't be a guarantor in the place of Shiltzion. Why not? The Amar of Yitzchak, my dichtiv Reya. Where's the pasuk here? Reya Yeroa ki Arav Zar Visone Tokin Boteach. Misfortune after misfortune befalls an Arev. Ra Achara Tavo Lemekable Gerim. Whoa. So bad things will happen to people that accept Gerim, and right away Tosfos clarifies we're not talking about that we can't accept Gerim. We're talking about accepting Gerim without making them go through the whole thing, without making sure that they're serious. Why is it a problem? As we'll see in Rashi in a few minutes, that if they're not serious, then they're going to be nichshol other people as well. Ula Arve Shiltzion. It's not good. It's very bad to be a guarantor in Shiltzion. Ulitokeya atzmo lidvar halacha. Somebody who attaches himself lidvar halacha. So mekable gerim kirebe chelbo. What's about being mekabel gerim? Damer of chelbo kashim gerim liswa kitzapachas beor. Gerim are bad like tsaras on the skin. And again, Rashi clarifies that it's only talking about gerim that are not serious and gerim that we just let in without giving them any faheres. But in general, what's the problem? Because Rashi says that they're going to go ahead ve'eno mekayim. Kashim game she'im bekiyim b'digduke mitzvah u'lemeidim yisrael mi'maaseim. They're going to teach people to go off the derech. But if you have a serious ger, please come. We're very happy to have them. Arve Shiltzion. What's the problem? Da'avdei shalav dutz. Wow. You shouldn't be a guarantor where there's this transaction of shalav dutz. What's this? So unfortunately there were certain places, i.e. Shiltzion, where the minhag was that if you were a guarantor, when the time for the loan came, they didn't go to the love to collect the loan, they came to the guarantor. Usually a guarantor is in case the love doesn't pay. But in this place, they're saying don't be a guarantor in Shiltzion because when the time for the loan comes due, they're not even going to bother with the love. They're just going to come straight to you as a guarantor. So don't be a guarantor in Shiltzion. Tokeya atzma ledvar lacha. What does it mean that a bad thing is because somebody who attaches himself to Dvar Lacha? It always sounds like it's a good thing to keep halacha. Detanya, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Kol HaOmer. And really, again, the word Omer will say, but it's really a person saying to himself. But it's basically Kol She'ein Lo Torah, Ein Lo Torah. Person who doesn't learn Torah, doesn't learn Torah. Pshita, that's obvious. Ela Kol Ein Lo Ela Torah, Ein Lo Ela Torah. Rather, a person who only learns Torah and doesn't practice, doesn't do mitzvos, doesn't act upon the Torah that they learn, he only gets schar for the Torah, not for the Maisa. Hanami Pshita, that's also obvious. If you learn and you don't practice, obviously you're only going to get schar for the learning and not for the practicing. Eladafilu Torah Elo, no. Even the Torah that you learn, you're not going to get schar for if you don't go ahead and use it in practice. Now that's a chiddush. My time, what's the reason? Amar of Papa, Amar Kravali Madatem Vasitem, Kol Sheyeshno Basiyo, Yeshno Belamida, Kol She'eno Basiya, Eno Belamida. Since it says Vili Madatem, you should learn Vasitem. If you learn without doing, so then we're not going to give you credit for the learning either. V'iba Yisema, another suggestion of what? Of why Tokei Atzma L'Dvar Lacha, a person who attach himself to Dvar Lacha, L'Olam Kedem Risa Meikara. It's like we said before. Kol She'ein Lo Ela Torah, Ein Lo Ela Torah. If you only learn, then you're only going to get schar for learning. This is a little different. It's saying you're going to get schar just for learning, even if you don't do. Lo tzricha dekam migmar le'achrine ve'aziv yadi. It's pash, you're only going to get schar for learning. No, if you teach other people and they go ahead and do, ma'od desema isla igra l'didei kamash malan. You might think that if you're a teacher, so you learn Torah, you teach Torah, but you don't do any mitzvos. But the people that you're teaching are going ahead and doing mitzvos. You might think that even though you didn't do mitzvos, the people that you taught went ahead and did mitzvos, you should get schar. No. If you learn and you don't do mitzvos, then you only get schar for the learning and not for the mitzvos, and you don't get schar for the mitzvahs that the other people do either. What does it mean attaching yourself to Dvar Lacha is a bad thing? It's talking about judges who a judgment comes in front of them, and unfortunately they don't know the din. If you know the din, it's very nice to give a judgment. So what do they do? Well, I had a case last week, and the parameters were pretty similar to this case. So you know what? It must be that it's the same din. And he doesn't go ahead and ask his Rabbi. That's a bad thing to do, to just be madam and milsa the milsa. If you know for sure, you know the halacha in this case, it's exactly the same, fine. But don't go ahead and say, last week it was similar, and therefore that's the halacha. You see the stringency and the importance of being a good judge. Every judge needs to see as if there's a sword between his thighs. Others say that on his neck. and every time you give a judgment, Gehenim is literally underneath you. There are 60 judges. You have to have pachas at night. That when you judge, you have to have the pachad of Gehenim. You have to be worried that you're going to mess up Gehenim, which is like Laila, Mefachid, Balilos, and therefore make sure that you think before you give the judgment. Let's just end with the following. Rabbi Gamliel Omer. Wow, we're flying today. Rabbi Gamliel Omer. Imiyana. So Rabbi Gamliel says in the Mishnah what? Rabbi Gamliel was the one who says that if you want to do miyan, you can do miyan like Rabbi Eliezer. But if not, so then wait until she gets big. Once she gets big, so now her marriage over here will be a deraisa marriage. We put chalitza and yibum on the side, but now that it's a deraisa marriage, so now they're going to be pater from yibum and chalitza on a deraisa level as well, and therefore he can stay married to her, and he doesn't need to do yibum or chalitza with his brother's wife, his brother who passed away. Now the Gemara is going to ask, and I'll just say quickly outside, the Gemara is going to ask when she actually grows up, this idea of her growing up. So does she automatically become his wife on a deraisa level when she hits 12, or do they need to have an active bia? It means, again, do they need to basically do anything, or is it just once she grows up, they already got married now as a ketana, everybody agrees. Now when she grows up, they automatically become married deraisa, or do they still need to do an active bia in order to sort of bring them from the derabanan marriage to the deraisa marriage? So that's what the Gemara is going to deal with now for just the next few lines. Says the Gemara, Ba minei Rabbi Elazar meirav, my time of Rabbi Gamliel. Mishum de Kesavar Kedusha Ketana Mitla Talu, it's pending. V'chigadla Gadli Behadaf Agabdalo Bal, and therefore when she gets older, so it's going to take effect as soon as she turns 12, even though they didn't do Bia. Odielma Mishum de Kesavar Mekadesh Achos Yivama Niftra Yivama V'Halchala Ibal in Ilo Bal Lo. Or are we going to say that no, that the first one was not a real marriage, and therefore, since, like you were saying, the Zika came before the Kedushin, in order to get rid of the Zika, you need to go ahead and you need to do a real Kedushin, i.e. you have to have Bia as well. Okay. Amrlei, Hainu Taimad Rabbi Gamliel, Mishum de Kesavar HaMekadesh Achos Yivama Niftera Yivama V'Halchala Ibal in Ilo Balo. It's interesting, I'm actually just thinking about this now. It sounds like this would not be the case in a regular case. It sounds like in a regular case, it seems something where everybody would agree that they just become married right away. It sounds like, based on what you were saying before and what Rashi is saying here, because in this case, the Zika, the connection to this woman came before there was a real marriage, the question is, yes, we're going to agree with you, or Rabbi Gamliel at least is going to hold that you can go ahead once she gets bigger and you can knock off the Zika with this Doraisa marriage. But it sounds like the Gemara is saying in general it would just happen automatically. They're married even before the Bia, she turns 12, now they're married on the Doraisa level. But because in this case it sounds like the Zika happened beforehand, the brother died before she turned 12, do you need to do another act of Kiddushin, in this case the Bia, in order to say, okay, now it kicks in, and on the Doraisa level she's parted from Yibam and Chalitza. So he says over here that in this case you need to go ahead and you need to have Bia, and if they don't have Bia again, so then it would not kick in, and you'd still have the same problem that she needs to do Chalitza, and then she can't marry i.e., and then he has to divorce his wife. Amar Rav Sheshes says, Amina kinayim v'shalchiv Rav Amar lahashmaita. Rav Sheshes says, with all due respect, Rav must have been sleeping when he said this. Titanya hamekadesh esaketana kedushin tluyin, because we see a brisa that says that if you marry a ketana, so kedushin is tluyin, it's sitting there, i.e., it's pending, and as soon as she becomes big, so then they're going to automatically be married. My tluyin lav ki gadla gadli ba'adav avagab delobal. Does it not imply that it's hanging there, that it's hanging and it's pending, and as soon as she becomes big, even without doing bia, so it's going to turn into a deraisa marriage? Amalei Rav and Brei Rav Nachman. No, you're understanding that brisa wrong. Hamilsa diktana mitla tilya v'kaima. It's not saying that the marriage is just pending. They still have to do an act of bia. So what does it mean that the marriage is pending? In the woman's mind, in this katana's mind, the marriage is always pending. In general, any woman, the marriage is always pending because the husband can always give a divorce. But in this case specifically, it's really just pending. Why? Ibal ini lo balo de amra hu adif minai ve'ana adifna minei. Because the girl in this case says we both have the upper hand. He has the upper hand like he does in every marriage, that he can just divorce me. But in this case, I have the upper hand because if I choose to, until I become a Gedola, I can do miyan. And therefore, when it says Hamekadish Ezaktana Kedusha Tluyin, it doesn't mean that it's pending and that it's automatically going to kick in, even in this case where we need the special remarriage in order to get rid of the Yibam, in order to get rid of the Zika of the Yibam or the Chalitza. It's saying Tluyin Ve'omdin, it's still, you need a Bia. And he wasn't necessarily sleeping when he said the halacha. You still need a bia in order to go in this case and make it into a deraisa marriage. What does it mean that the kedushin is only tluyin v'omdin? In her mind, in this case, it's only tluyin v'omdin. It's unclear what's going to happen because again, she has the right to divorce him with miyan if she wants, or just to do miyan, and he has the right to divorce her at any time. Have a wonderful day.